What happens when two comedy legends clash on live television and years of buried tension finally explode into the most uncomfortable interview moment ever captured? You're about to witness a conversation that went so wrong it had producers scrambling and audiences gasping. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because this one is going to leave you speechless. The atmosphere in Studio B felt different that afternoon. Queen Latifah sat behind her signature desk, adjusting her blazer one final time as the production crew made their last-minute preparations. The show had built a reputation for comfortable, engaging celebrity interviews. But something about today felt charged with an energy that even the seasoned host couldn't quite place. 5 minutes to air, Queen called out to the floor director, her voice cutting through the controlled chaos of a live television set. Camera operators took their positions while sound technicians made final adjustments to the wireless microphones. The studio audience, already warmed up by the opening comedian, buzzed with anticipation. Martin Lawrence emerged from his dressing room, his usual confident swagger slightly muted. He'd been doing press tours for years, but something about this particular appearance had him on edge. His publicist walked beside him, whispering last-minute reminders about staying on topic and keeping things light. "Remember, we're here to promote the project. Keep it fun. Keep it positive," she said, her voice barely audible over the pre-show music. Martin nodded, but his jaw was already set in a way that suggested he had other things on his mind. As he made his way to the guest chair, he caught sight of Queen Latifah reviewing her note cards. Their eyes met briefly across the studio, and something unspoken passed between them. "Martin, good to see you," Queen Latifah said as he approached, extending her hand with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Yeah, likewise," Martin replied, his handshake brief and businesslike. He settled into the guest chair, immediately adjusting his position as if he couldn't get comfortable. The floor director began his countdown, and the familiar theme music filled the studio. Queen Latifah straightened up, her professional demeanor sliding into place like armor. "We're back with another exciting episode, and I'm here with comedy legend Martin Lawrence," she began, her voice warm and welcoming for the cameras. "Martin, it's great to have you on the show." "Thanks for having me, Queen," Martin responded, but there was something in his tone that suggested he wasn't entirely sure he wanted to be there. "So let's dive right in. You've had an incredible career spanning decades, from your early stand-up days to your iconic television work and blockbuster films. Looking back, what would you say has been the most challenging part of your journey?" The question seemed innocent enough, standard interview fare, but Martin's expression shifted slightly. He leaned back in his chair, studying Queen Latifah's face as if trying to read something deeper in her words. "You know, Queen, that's interesting that you'd start there. Most hosts want to talk about the fun stuff first, the success stories. You're going straight to the challenges." Queen Latifah maintained her professional smile, but her grip on her note cards tightened almost imperceptibly. "Well, I think our audience appreciates authenticity. They want to know about the real journey, not just the highlight reel." "The real journey," Martin repeated, his voice taking on a slightly sharper edge. "That's what we're doing here, getting real." The studio audience began to sense the shift in energy, the comfortable chatter dying down to focused attention. Even the camera operators seemed to lean in slightly, instinctively knowing they might be capturing something unexpected. "I mean, we can keep it as surface level as you want," Queen Latifah replied. And there it was, the first crack in her professional facade. "But I figured after all these years, we could have a genuine conversation." Martin's laugh was short and humorless. "After all these years, that's a loaded phrase coming from you." The tension in the studio was now palpable. Queen Latifah's smile faltered for just a moment before she recovered, but Martin had already seen the break. "I'm not sure I follow," she said carefully. "Don't you?" Martin leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees. "Come on, Queen. We both know there's history here that goes way beyond anything I'm promoting today." Queen Latifah glanced toward the cameras, acutely aware that they were live and that every word was being broadcast to millions of viewers. "Martin, I think maybe we should focus on your current projects. Should we? Or should we finally address the elephant in the room that's been sitting between us for the last 15 years? The studio had gone completely silent now. Even the production crew had stopped their usual background activities. All attention focused on the increasingly uncomfortable exchange happening in front of them. Queen Latifah took a deep breath, her professionalism warring with something deeper and more personal. I'm not sure this is the appropriate venue for whatever you think needs to be addressed. Appropriate? Martin's voice rose slightly. Since when have you been concerned about what's appropriate? That's rich coming from someone who built a career on keeping it real, on authenticity, on all those things you just claimed to value. The cameras continued to roll, capturing every moment of what was quickly becoming the most talked about interview moment in recent memory. Queen Latifah's producer, watching from the control room, was frantically gesturing to keep filming while simultaneously calculating how they might edit this for broadcast. Martin, I think you're misunderstanding something here, Queen Latifah said, her voice steady, but her knuckles white as she gripped her cards. Am I? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're doing exactly what you've always done. Playing it safe, controlling the narrative, making sure you come out looking like the reasonable one. The accusation hung in the air between them, heavy with implications that the audience could only guess at. Queen Latifah's professional composure was beginning to show serious cracks. I don't know what you want me to say, Martin. I want you to be honest. Just once. Can you do that? Queen Latifah's eyes flashed with something that looked dangerously close to anger. The question about honesty had clearly struck a nerve, and for the first time since the interview began, her carefully maintained professional mask slipped completely. Honest? She repeated, her voice dropping to a lower register. You want to talk about honesty, Martin? That's fascinating coming from you. Martin sat back slightly, surprised by the shift in her tone. He'd expected her to deflect, to try to steer the conversation back to safer ground. Instead, she was leaning into the confrontation. What's that supposed to mean? It means maybe we should examine who's really been playing games all these years. Queen Latifah sat down her note cards with deliberate precision. You want to do this? Fine, let's do this. The studio audience was completely silent now, sensing they were witnessing something unprecedented. This wasn't the warm, welcoming Queen Latifah they knew from countless interviews. This was someone else entirely. Someone with sharp edges and unresolved grievances. I'm listening, Martin said, though his confident posture had shifted slightly. He'd wanted to provoke a reaction, but the intensity in Queen Latifah's eyes suggested he might have gotten more than he bargained for. You sit there talking about keeping it real, about authenticity, about all the things I supposedly don't value. But where was that authenticity when you were spreading stories about me behind closed doors? Where was that honesty when you were telling anyone who would listen that I didn't deserve the opportunities one was getting? Martin's expression hardened. I never said anything about you that wasn't true. Queen Latifah laughed, but there was no humor in it. Your version of true. Maybe your interpretation of events that you weren't even present for. I was present for enough. I was there when you were making moves. When you were positioning yourself. When you were playing politics while the rest of us were just trying to survive in this business. Playing politics? Is that what you call it when someone works hard and builds relationships instead of burning bridges everywhere they go? The accusation hit its mark. Martin's jaw tightened and his hands gripped the arms of his chair. So, we're going there now. We're really going to go there on live television. You started this, Martin. You're the one who wanted to get real. Remember? You're the one who couldn't just come on my show, promote your project, and keep it professional. Professional? Martin repeated, his voice heavy with sarcasm. Like you were professional when you blocked me from that project back in the day. Like you were professional when you used your influence to make sure certain doors stayed closed. The accusation sent a visible shock through Queen Latifah. Whatever Martin was referring to, it clearly carried significant weight between them. I have never, ever used my position to hurt your career, and you know it, she said, her voice trembling with controlled fury. The fact that you would even suggest that shows exactly who you are. Who I am. Who I am is someone who watched you climb that ladder and pull it up behind you. Who I am is someone who remembers when you were struggling just like the rest of us. Before you forgot where you came from. Before I forgot where I came from? Queen Latifah stood up abruptly, her chair rolling backward. Are you serious right now? You're going to sit in my studio on my show and tell me I forgot where I came from. Martin remained seated, but his posture was now rigid with anger. If the shoe fits, the shoe fits. Martin, I have spent my entire career lifting up other people, creating opportunities, using whatever platform I have to help others succeed. What have you done besides tear people down when things don't go your way? I've stayed true to myself. I haven't compromised my values for a paycheck and a pat on the head from executives who don't care about us. My values. Queen Latifah's voice was rising now, her composure completely abandoned. My values include not sabotaging other people's careers because I'm bitter about my own choices. Lady, you're delusional if you think I have that kind of power. You're the one with the influence, with the connections, with the ability to make or break careers with a phone call. And you think I used that against you? You think I sat in some boardroom somewhere plotting your downfall? Martin, you are giving me way too much credit and taking way too little responsibility for your own actions. The cameras continued to capture every heated exchange, every gesture, every flash of anger that passed between them. The production crew was frozen, unsure whether to intervene or let this unprecedented moment play out. My actions were trying to be honest in a business built on lies. My actions were calling out hypocrisy when I saw it. My actions were refusing to play the game the way people like you wanted me to play it. People like me, Queen Latifah repeated slowly, and there was something dangerous in her tone. What exactly do you mean by people like me? Martin realized he'd stepped into dangerous territory, but his anger pushed him forward. People who smile in your face and stab you in the back. People who preach about authenticity and community while they're making deals that benefit nobody but themselves. You have no idea what you're talking about, Queen Latifah said, her voice now deadly quiet. You have no idea what sacrifices I've made, what I've turned down, what I've fought for behind the scenes that you'll never know about because I don't need to broadcast every good deed for validation. Sacrifices? What sacrifices? Your career has been nothing but one success after another. While people who were more talented, more deserving got pushed aside. More deserving. According to who? According to you. Martin stood up now, matching her energy. According to anyone with eyes and a sense of justice. Justice. Queen Latifah stepped closer to him, no longer caring about camera angles or audience comfort. You want to talk about justice? Let's talk about how you've spent years bitter and resentful instead of focusing on your own work. Let's talk about how you've blamed everyone else for your problems instead of looking in the mirror. I don't need to look in the mirror. I know exactly who I am and what I've accomplished. The question is, do you? Or are you so caught up in being America's sweetheart that you've forgotten what it means to be real? The insult landed like a physical blow. Queen Latifah's hands were shaking now. Whether from anger or hurt, it was impossible to tell. Get out, she said quietly. What? I said. Get out. Get off my stage. Get out of my studio. And don't ever come back. The studio fell into a stunned silence that seemed to stretch on forever. Martin stared at Queen Latifah, his expression shifting from anger to disbelief as her words sank in. The audience sat frozen, unsure if they should react or remain quiet, while camera operators continued filming what had become the most explosive interview moment in television history. You're kicking me off your show? Martin asked, his voice carrying a mix of shock and indignation. In the middle of a live broadcast? That's exactly what I'm doing, Queen Latifah replied, her chest rising and falling rapidly as she tried to control her breathing. This interview is over. Martin let out a bitter laugh that echoed through the silent studio. This is perfect. This is absolutely perfect. The real Queen Latifah finally shows her face. And what does she do? She runs away from the truth. I'm not running from anything, Queen Latifah shot back. I'm protecting my show, my audience, and my sanity from whatever breakdown you're having right now. Breakdown? Martin's voice rose to a level that made several audience members shift uncomfortably in their seats. The only breakdown here is the breakdown of your carefully constructed image. People are finally seeing who you really are underneath all that fake positivity. Queen Latifah moved closer to him, her professionalism completely abandoned. Fake. You want to see fake, Martin? Fake is coming on someone's show under the pretense of promoting a project, when what you really want to do is air out your personal grievances on live television. Fake is ambushing someone who invited you into their space with respect and hospitality. Respect and hospitality? Martin gestured wildly toward the cameras. Is that what you call setting me up with loaded questions designed to make me look unstable? You think I don't know what this was really about? Nobody set you up for anything. You did this to yourself the moment you decided to make this personal instead of professional. Martin started to remove his wireless microphone, his movements sharp and angry. Professional. There's nothing professional about what you've been doing behind the scenes for years. At least I have the courage to say it to your face instead of whispering in boardrooms and at industry parties. What I do behind the scenes is support other artists, create opportunities, and try to build something positive in this industry. What you do is tear people down because you can't handle the fact that life isn't fair. Martin threw his microphone onto the guest chair with such force that it bounced onto the floor. You're right about that. Life isn't fair when talented people get passed over for people who know how to play the game better. Queen Latifah watched him remove the microphone, her own anger still burning, but mixed now with something that looked almost like sadness. You know what, Martin? You're right. Life isn't fair. But that doesn't give you the right to come into my house and disrespect me in front of my audience. Your house. Your audience. Martin stepped toward the edge of the stage, addressing not just Queen Latifah, but the cameras and the people watching. This is what I'm talking about. Everything is hers. Her show, her rules, her version of the truth. God forbid someone challenges that or asks the hard questions. The floor director was frantically gesturing from the sidelines, trying to figure out whether to cut to commercial or let this unprecedented moment continue. The decision was made for him when Martin started walking toward the exit. Where are you going? Queen Latifah called after him, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. Martin paused at the edge of the stage and turned back to face her one final time. I'm leaving before you have me dragged out by security. But don't worry, Queen. You got exactly what you wanted. You made me look like the angry, unstable one while you get to play the victim. Nobody made you do anything, Martin. These were your choices, your words, your actions. My actions were trying to have an honest conversation with someone I thought I knew. Someone I thought had integrity. Martin shook his head, his disappointment now as evident as his anger. I guess I was wrong about a lot of things. Queen Latifah crossed her arms, her defensive posture matching her words. The only thing you were wrong about was thinking you could come on my show and turn it into your personal therapy session. Therapy session? Martin laughed again, but this time the sound was hollow and defeated. You know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe I do need therapy to figure out how I ever respected someone who turned out to be everything that's wrong with this business. The insult hit Queen Latifah like a physical blow. For a moment, her composure cracked completely, and something raw and vulnerable flashed across her face before the anger returned. Get out, Martin. Just get out. I'm already gone, Martin replied, turning his back on her and walking toward the studio exit. But this conversation isn't over. Not by a long shot. As Martin disappeared through the studio doors, Queen Latifah remained standing center stage, her hands shaking as she tried to process what had just happened. The audience sat in stunned silence, unsure whether to applaud, boo, or simply remain quiet. The floor director finally found his voice. And we're going to commercial, he announced, though his words seemed to come from another world entirely. Queen Latifah slowly made her way back to her desk, her legs unsteady as the adrenaline began to fade. She sat down heavily in her chair, staring at the empty guest seat where Martin had been sitting just minutes earlier. Ladies and gentlemen, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. I apologize for what you just witnessed. That was not the show we intended to bring you today. The cameras were still rolling, capturing every moment of her attempt to regain her composure. Her usual warmth and confidence had been replaced by something fragile and uncertain. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll have some music for you, she continued, though it was clear her heart wasn't in the words. As the show cut to commercial, Queen Latifah remained seated at her desk, alone with her thoughts and the lingering tension that Martin Lawrence had left behind. The studio slowly came back to life as crew members began moving around. But the atmosphere remained charged with the electricity of what had just transpired. The interview that was supposed to be a routine promotional appearance had become something entirely different. A raw and unfiltered glimpse into years of buried resentment, professional jealousy, and personal disappointment. And somewhere outside the studio, Martin Lawrence was walking away, leaving behind not just an interview, but potentially an entire relationship that could never be repaired. What did you think about this incredible confrontation? Have you ever seen two celebrities go at each other like this on live television? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more unbelievable celebrity stories that you won't find anywhere else.